I have never once feared the power going out. Here in Norway, a winter storm can pull the lines down in the middle of the night, and I sleep straight through it, because along the north wall of my house stands a wall of wood, split, stacked, and dry, and a wall of wood is a wall against fear. You will find one at nearly every house here, not a tidy little bundle by the door for show, but a true wall, chest high and longer than a car, packed tight enough that the wind cannot find a way through it. To an American eye, it can look like a lot of work for a home that already has heat coming out of the wall. To us, it is the most ordinary thing in the world. It is winter, made small enough to hold. My father built ours, and he taught me to read it the way some men read the sky. He could stand in another man's yard, look at his wood pile, and tell you what kind of man he was. A high, straight stack meant a careful man who thought a season ahead. A low, leaning heap meant a man who lived hand to mouth and would be knocking on a neighbor's door come February. He was rarely wrong. The pile does not lie. It shows what you did last spring, when the sun was warm and the cold felt far away. What that wall holds is not really wood, it is ours. Every split log is an afternoon my father spent with a saw and an axe when he did not have to, so that a night in January would take care of itself. He was not poor. We had lights, we had a stove that ran on the wall current like anyone's. He kept the wood because a house that depends on one thing depends on one thing, and one thing can fail. 2 ways to stay warm is not twice the work. It is peace. I have carried that with me my whole life. When the neighbors on the coast lose power for 2 days in a gale, they are cold and cross and calling the electric company. I am not. I open the stove, I lay the fire, and the room comes up to a good warmth while the storm throws itself against the glass. Nothing about my evening changes. That is the quiet luxury of it, and it costs almost nothing but the foresight to have the wood ready before you need it. There is a word for the feeling that gives you, and it is not a word about money. In Norwegian, we call it nok, enough. Enough wood, enough warmth, enough that you do not lie awake counting what you lack. A man with a full wood pile has enough, and he knows it, and he sleeps. I want to tell you how seriously we take this. Once, the whole country sat down to watch it. On a Friday night in February of 2013, our national broadcaster, the state television every household here can turn on for free, gave over 12 hours of prime time to firewood. Not a drama about firewood itself. Men on a farm outside Bergen, sawing it, splitting it, stacking it, talking about it in low, serious voices, and then, for the last 8 hours, a single fire burning in a stone hearth while the camera simply watched it. You would think no one would sit through such a thing. Nearly 1 million people did, close to 1 in 5 of everyone in the country. They made coffee, they pulled a blanket over their knees, and they watched wood burn on live television deep into the night. It came from a book. A few years before, a Norwegian named Lars Mitting had written a whole volume about chopping, drying, and stacking wood, and about what he called the soul of the thing. He expected it to sell to a few old men like me. It sold well over 100,000 copies here, then went out into the world in a dozen languages, and sold to people who had never split a log in their lives. The television night grew straight out of that book, and then came the fight. Once the men on screen began stacking the split logs, the messages started coming in. Hundreds of them, then thousands. Half the country was furious that the wood was being stacked with the bark facing up. The other half was just as sure it belonged bark down. Mitting himself got dozens of angry messages in a single evening from viewers who could not bear to watch it done wrong. A calm nation nearly came to blows over which way to turn a piece of bark. I tell you this not because the bark argument matters. I will settle it for you later, and it is smaller than either side believed. I tell you it because of what it says. Here is a peaceful, modern, wealthy country,
a place with more electric heat and cheap power than almost anywhere on Earth. And when you put firewood on the television, 1 million people come and a nation picks a side. That does not happen with something people have forgotten. It happens with something people still feel in their hands. The wood is not nostalgia here. It is not a decoration we keep for the look of it. It is a live thing in the culture, argued over at the kitchen table. And that is exactly why the knowledge behind it is worth having. A country does not fight about what it no longer knows how to do. So let me give you the knowledge, the way my father gave it to me, starting with the one rule that separates a warm house from a smoky, frustrating one. The wood must wait.
Freshly cut wood will not warm your house. Cut a tree today and up to half the weight of it is water. The log is more like a wet sponge than a fuel. Throw that on the fire and most of your flame goes to nothing but boiling the water out of it. You get a weak, hissing fire, a cool room, and a chimney lining itself with trouble. The wood has to dry first. We call it seasoning, and it is mostly a matter of time and patience. Split wood left out through a warm, windy summer will lose that water slowly, week by week, until it holds less than 1/5 of its weight in moisture. That is the number that matters, under 20%. Below that line, the wood lights easily, burns hot, and gives you nearly all its heat instead of spending it on steam. This is why the wall of wood is always a year ahead of you. The wood I burned this winter was cut and split last spring, when the snow went off the ground and I had a whole summer of drying in front of me. The wood I cut this year, I will not touch until next winter. A good wood pile is 2 piles, really. This year's, dry and ready, and next year's, still giving up its water in the sun. My father always kept the 2 apart, so he would never reach for a wet log by mistake. A softer wood like pine or birch can be ready in 6 months to a year. A dense hardwood like oak can take 2 full years to come right. You cannot rush it, and the man who tries ends up cold. Wet wood does more than disappoint you. When it smolders instead of burning clean, the smoke carries unburned tar up the flue, and that tar cools and sticks to the inside of the chimney as a black, greasy layer called creosote. Let enough of it build, and one hot fire can set the chimney itself alight, a roaring fire inside your own wall. Nearly every chimney fire I have ever heard of started with someone burning wood that was not ready. Dry wood is not only warmer, it is safer. So here is the first thing you can do, and you can do it the week you read this, wherever you live. If you have a stove or a fireplace, do not buy your wood in November when the cold is already on you and every log for sale has been rushed and is half wet. Buy it in the spring, buy it cheaper, and stack it in your own yard through the summer. Let time do the work that no fire can do. Come winter, you will have wood that lights on the first match and pays you back in real heat, and you will have paid less for it than the panicked man buying wet logs in the first snow. But drying only works if you stack it right. That is a craft of its own, and it is where the old argument was really settled. A wood pile has 3 enemies: the wet ground below it, the rain above it, and still, trapped air that lets nothing dry. Everything my father taught me about stacking was aimed at beating those 3. First, get the wood up off the ground. Bare soil breathes damp straight up into the lowest logs and rots them before they ever dry. We lay the stack on a bed of old planks or a couple of wooden pallets, anything that keeps that bottom row in the air. Then you build up from there, and you leave the sides open. No tarp choking the pile, no wall pressed against it. Wood dries on moving air. The wind has to be able to walk right through the stack, in one side and out the other, carrying the water away with it. Cover the top, though, and only the top. A board, a sheet of metal, a length of old roofing laid over the crown of the pile throws off the rain and snow, while the sides stay open to the wind. A tarp wrapped all the way around a wood pile is one of the most common mistakes I see. It keeps the rain off, yes, but it seals the moisture in, and the wood sweats and molds instead of drying. Roof it like a little house, never wrap it like a package.
Now, the great bark argument from the television. Here is the truth of it, and it is simpler than a nation of shouting neighbors made it. Bark sheds water. So on the very top layer of an outdoor pile, some men lay the wood bark side up, like shingles, to help throw off the rain. Down in the body of the stack, where you want air moving past the cut faces of the wood, it hardly matters which way the bark points. Both camps on the television were half right, and were furious about the wrong half. Stack it however lets the air through, and turn the top logs bark up if they are catching the weather. That is the whole feud, settled. How do you know when it is finally ready? You do not need a laboratory. Dry, seasoned wood turns gray and dull instead of fresh and bright. The cut ends grow cracks that run out from the center like the spokes of a wheel. It feels surprisingly light in the hand because the water that was weight is gone. And when you knock two dry pieces together, they ring, a clean, hollow, almost musical knock, where wet wood gives only a dull thud. My father tested a pile by sound alone, one log against another, listening. If you want to be certain, a small moisture meter costs very little at any hardware store. You push its 2 pins into a fresh split face and read the number, and under 20 means burn it. Once it is dry and stacked and ringing, there is still a right way and a wrong way to light it.
Most people build a fire upside down and never know it. They crumple paper at the bottom, pile kindling on the paper, lay the big logs on top of the kindling, and touch a match to the bottom. It catches fast and feels right. It is also the smokiest, dirtiest way to burn wood there is. Here we do it the other way around, and once you see why, you will never go back. The big logs go on the bottom. On top of them, a layer of smaller split pieces. On top of that, thin kindling, and right at the very top, your tinder and your match. You light it from the top and let the fire burn downward into the wood beneath it. It seems backward until you understand what smoke actually is. Smoke is fuel. It is the gases cooking out of the wood that have not yet caught fire. In an ordinary bottom-lit fire, the flames are underneath, so those gases rise up out of the cold logs above and straight up the chimney unburned. That is your smoke, and every wisp of it is heat you paid for and lost, and tar going up to line your flue. In a top-lit fire, the flame sits on top. The gases cooking out of the logs below have to rise up through that flame to escape, and so they catch and burn on the way out instead of slipping past. The fire feeds on its own smoke. The difference is plain the moment you try it. A top-lit fire gives you a thin, nearly clear shimmer above the chimney instead of a gray plume. It burns quieter and steadier, without the sudden roars and collapses. It leaves far less of that dangerous creosote in the chimney. And because more of the wood is turning into heat instead of smoke, the same armful of logs warms your room longer. You are not burning more wood. You are wasting less of it. It costs you nothing to switch. The wood is the same, the stove is the same, the match is the same. All that changes is the order you stack it in and which end you light. Build it big on the bottom, small on the top, light the top, and walk away. You do not need to crouch and fuss and blow on it. A well-built top-down fire is the closest thing to a fire that lights itself. That is the whole craft, start to finish. The drying, the stacking, the lighting. It is not hard. It only asks that you think a little ahead of the cold. But before you go build your own wall of wood, I owe you the honest part. The things about my life here that will not simply cross the ocean and land in your yard. I will not sell you a Norway you cannot have. Some of what makes the wood easy here does not travel, and you deserve to know it before you count on it. Here we have an old right we call Allemansretten, the freedom to roam, and with it, in many places, the freedom to take deadfall and clear wind-blown timber. Much of my wood over the years cost me only the work of cutting it. You most likely do not have that. In much of America, the forest is owned, fenced, or federal, and to cut your own you need a permit, or you buy your wood by the cord from a man with a truck. That is a real difference. Budget for buying, not for gathering, unless you own your own trees. There is more. In some American towns and valleys, when the air goes still and dirty, the county forbids wood burning on certain days altogether. And those rules are worth respecting, because they exist where too many wet, smoky fires fouled the air. If you burn, burn dry and burn clean, and you will rarely be the problem. And not every home even has a stove or a sound chimney. Putting one in is a real expense, not a weekend's work. I will not pretend otherwise. And here is the most honest thing of all. I do not burn wood because I must. Our electricity comes cheap from mountain water, and I could heat this whole house by turning a dial and never lift an axe again. I keep the wood by choice. That choice is the whole point, and it is one you can make wherever you live, because the thing the wall of wood really gives you was never mainly about the heating bill. It is this. When the storm takes the power and the house goes dark and cold, the man with no wood is at the mercy of the line crew and the weather. The man with a wall of wood simply lights his stove. He is not afraid, because he was never depending on one thing. That freedom from fear is not Norwegian. It does not need our mountains or our old rights. It needs a stove, a dry stack of wood you laid in last spring, and the habit of thinking one season ahead. Any of that is available to you. So do the small thing this week. If you have a fireplace or a stove, find out this month when your chimney was last swept, and get it done before you light a single fire. Then, in the spring, buy your winter's wood while it is cheap and green, stack it off the ground with the top covered and the sides open, and let the summer dry it for you. By next winter, you will have a wall of your own, and on the coldest night of the year, when the wind is up and the lights flicker and go, you will light your fire from the top and watch it take, and the room will fill with that low, steady warmth we call kos, the deep coziness of being safe and warm while the weather rages outside. That is the whole of it. A man with a full woodpile has enough, and he sleeps.